Picture this. You're sitting in a meeting, your pen hovering over a blank notebook. The discussion drones on, numbers, projections, procedural minutiae, and your hand, seemingly of its own volition, begins to trace shapes in the margin. Spirals, loops, stick figures, or a haphazard sun. At first you might feel guilty, labeling it as a sign of boredom or inattentiveness, yet unbeknownst to you, your idle doodles are anything but meaningless. They are whispers from your subconscious, echoes of thought patterns, emotional states, and untapped creative potential. Neuroscience increasingly validates what artists, educators, and psychologists have long suspected. These seemingly trivial scribbles are a window into the mind. Through the lens of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself through experience, doodling is more than an outlet. It is a dynamic, interactive dialogue between your conscious focus and subconscious thought. So every curve and every line holds potential for insight, reflection, and even cognitive transformation. Historically, doodles have been misunderstood as the byproduct of distraction, yet a closer look at history reveals that many of the most brilliant minds, that being Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, and Nikola Tesla, engaged in prolific idle sketches. Now, these weren't just ornamental, they were thought exercises, cognitive scaffolds, and creative experiments. Da Vinci's notebooks are a testament to this interplay. Anatomical sketches, spiraling mechanical designs, and fragmented visual ideas that map both imagination and analytical thinking. Psychologically, doodling is a form of idle creativity, the brain's method of staying engaged while processing information. Even when attention seems diverted, the brain is active in what researchers call the default mode network, DMN. It's a neural circuit responsible for imagination, self-reflection, and subconscious thought processing. Doodling is a behavioral manifestation of the DMN at work, translating abstract mental activity into tangible form. Cognitively, the act of doodling enhances memory and comprehension. And in a study by psychologists 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 and colleagues, participants who doodled while listening to a dull telephone message recalled 29% more information than those who didn't. So this is because doodling helps the brain avoid cognitive overload, keeping it optimally aroused and engaged. At a neurological level, doodling is far from idle. The simple act of drawing activates multiple brain regions simultaneously. Number 1, the motor cortex. This controls hand movements and fine motor skills. Each stroke strengthens neural connections involved in dexterity. Secondly, prefrontal cortex. This is responsible for executive function, planning, and decision-making. Even free-form doodling requires micro-decisions, how to curve a line, how much space to leave, or which symbol to repeat. Thirdly, temporal and parietal lobes. This facilitates spatial awareness, pattern recognition, and visual processing. And then fourth, the default mode network, the DMN, as I mentioned earlier. The DMN supports creativity, self-reflection, and internal narrative. So this is often expressed through subconscious visual symbols and doodles. Through neuroplasticity, these repeated doodling exercises don't just reflect the brain's current state, they actively reshape it. So a person who habitually sketches spirals, figures, or abstract patterns may strengthen neural pathways associated with problem solving, emotional insight, or spatial reasoning. In other words, your doodles don't just show who you are, they can help sculpt who you're becoming. And then while interpretation is never exact, patterns in doodles often correlate with cognitive and emotional tendencies. Here are some common categories. Number 1, geometric shapes, grids, and spirals. Interpretation, structured thinking, analytical mind, a desire for order. The neuroscience link engages the parietal lobe for pattern recognition and the prefrontal cortex for planning. Behavioral insight, regular geometric doodlers often exhibit meticulousness and problem-solving skills, but they may struggle with flexibility or being spontaneous. Then faces, figures, and caricatures. The interpretation here is emotional processing, social cognition, and empathy. The neuroscience link, this activates the fusiform gyrus, facial recognition, and mirror neuron systems, tying visual representation to social and emotional understanding. The behavioral insight, frequent facial doodlers are often highly attuned to interpersonal dynamics and may subconsciously process their own or others' emotions through drawing. Repetitive patterns, loops, and abstract lines. The interpretation, this could reflect rumination, anxiety, or a meditative focus. The neuroscience link, repetitive motions help regulate the autonomic nervous system, potentially reducing stress via parasympathetic activation. The behavioral insight, these doodlers often use drawing as self-soothing or as a conduit for subconscious problem solving. And then we've got marginal notes, symbols, and iconography. The interpretation, hidden narratives, aspirational imagery, or unresolved conflicts. The neuroscience link, the symbolic doodling taps into the hippocampus and DMN, translating abstract thought and memory into visual form. The behavioral insight, individuals who combine text and symbol in doodles may be working through internal conflicts or setting subconscious goals. Doodles often serve as a visual diary of unspoken thoughts. A spiral growing outward may symbolize expansion or anxiety. A sun rising over a hill could express hope or longing, and repeated chains or loops may indicate feelings of entrapment or obsession. Clinical psychologists have long used free drawing and scribbling as projective tools, revealing cognitive and emotional patterns inaccessible to conscious questioning. So, for example, patients who repeatedly draw closed shapes may be expressing a subconscious need for security or control, and then those who leave large empty spaces around objects might be indicating social distance or avoidance. Neuroscience offers another layer. So as the brain encodes experiences and emotions, it often bypasses verbal pathways. So it's storing impressions in visual and motor networks. So doodles then become a bridge, translating these encoded experiences into interpretable symbols. It's akin to seeing one's dreams materialize on paper. So a direct line from subconscious processing to conscious recognition. Beyond insight, doodling is a potent tool for emotional regulation. By engaging both motor and cognitive circuits, it induces a mild meditative state, lowering cortisol levels and increasing focus. Habitual doodlers often exhibit higher emotional intelligence. As they process feelings non-verbally, they build internal narratives and practice self-reflection. Through neuroplasticity, repeated doodling reinforces these beneficial pathways. Over time, doodlers may notice improved pattern recognition, problem-solving skills, and even an enhanced capacity for empathy. In essence, hand tracing loops and faces is training the brain to navigate both inner and outer worlds more effectively. Here are some practical strategies. Doodle journaling. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes daily for free drawing without judgment. Pattern analysis. Reflect on recurring shapes or motifs. What do they suggest about current thought patterns? And then there's intentional doodling. Use symbols to represent goals, fears, or aspirations, subtly guiding neuroplastic changes toward desired outcomes. The rise of digital tablets, stylus pens, and AI drawing tools introduces new dimensions to doodling. While digital art offers flexibility and tactile hand-to-paper experience carries unique neuroplastic benefits, physical pen-to-paper movements engage fine motor control more robustly, activating motor and sensory feedback loops critical for memory, creativity, and cognitive integration. However, digital doodling isn't devoid of potential. Intentional stylus work, especially combined with reflective prompts, can still foster neural rewiring and subconscious expression. The key difference lies in embodied engagement. The more a doodler physically interacts with their medium, the stronger the potential neuroplastic impact. And if you've managed to still stick around, I wanted to offer some practical applications and exercises. Firstly, decoding your doodles. So look for recurring symbols, patterns, and shapes, and then journal about the emotions or thoughts present while drawing. Map doodle types to life domains like your work, relationships, self-perception. Number 2, subconscious problem solving. When you're faced with a complex problem, doodle freely while thinking of solutions. Observe emergent patterns. Your subconscious may suggest ideas not yet articulated. And then there's doodle meditation. So focus on repetitive patterns or looping shapes while taking slow, intentional breaths. Notice emotional shifts over time. This practice strengthens calmness and cognitive flexibility. And then number 4, goal visualization. This represents objectives as icons or landscapes or abstract forms. Revisit and refine these doodles, creating a visual roadmap that aligns the subconscious focus with conscious intention. So doodles are not just distractions, they are actually microcosms of the subconscious. Sketches that breathe life into thoughts we might not even realize we are having. So these are kind of like your fingerprints of your mind's inner workings, visual echoes of ideas, fears, and desires that often elude conscious language. So each squiggle, spiral, and stick figure is a coded message just waiting to be deciphered. It's a bridge between the subconscious and the conscious mind. Now, through the lens of neuroplasticity, doodling becomes more than a reflection. It becomes a tool for transformation. So every time you let your hand move freely across the page, you are engaging networks in the brain responsible for memory, problem solving, creativity, and emotional regulation. The more you practice, the more these networks strengthen, and it'll be subtle. This is going to reshape your cognitive and emotional patterns. So your scribbles today can influence the pathways of thought tomorrow. And also doodles invite curiosity, self-awareness, and mindfulness. So unlike structured writing or typing, which is linear and often like externally directed, doodling is non-linear. It's free-flowing and internally guided. It taps into your natural ability to synthesize complex information, process emotions, and explore abstract concepts. It's an intimate conversation with yourself. Think of it as a dialogue that bypasses social expectation and taps directly into your authentic mind. So just imagine the potential if we collectively embrace this hidden language. Schools could integrate doodling into curricula, not as distraction, but as a cognitive tool, So workplaces could see doodles not as signs of disengagement, but as moments of mental integration and creativity. Personal development could harness doodling as a method for reflection, for planning, and even emotional healing. And then the neuroplastic opportunity, if you consider the implications of consistent intentional doodling, you're looking at memory enhancement. So by combining visual and motor pathways, doodling strengthens encoding of information and making learning more robust. And then there's emotional regulation. The repetitive mindful act of drawing engages the parasympathetic nervous system. This reduces stress and enhances emotional stability. And then creative expansion. This will activate the default mode network, the DMN, which allows for novel connections between ideas, fostering innovation and lateral thinking. Then there's subconscious insight. The recurrent symbols and patterns reveal hidden concerns, aspirations, and internal conflicts. This will offer opportunities for conscious reflection and change. So, in other words, a single spiral during a boring meeting is not just a doodle, it's a neuroplastic exercise. So it's tiny, but it's powerful. It's an act of self-expression. It's a vehicle for your subconscious insight. And the act of doodling strengthens neural pathways that allow you to think differently, feel more deeply, and approach problems creatively. So the next time you find yourself making little scribbles and the pen's wandering, just resist the urge to dismiss it. Instead, observe what is shaping what appears naturally. Are there recurring motifs? Do your lines reflect tension, joy, curiosity, maybe fear? And how does the act of drawing affect your focus, your mood, or your thought patterns? Just trust each doodle as a message from your inner mind. It's a subtle whisper from your subconscious. This is just carrying hints of who you are, what you desire, and even who you can become. So over time, all you need to do is just pay attention, reflect, and doodle intentionally. And this way you can harness the idle creativity, reshape your mind, your emotional patterns, and your life. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a good one.